Well, I must confess, I'm not a big fan of the speeches given at national political conventions. Even the most mild attempt at eloquence is met with, moistened eyes. And, even the most banal observations are met with thunderous applause. I watched Bill Clinton's speech at the Democratic convention, and I think it was interrupted by ovations every 20 seconds, making it much longer than the speech he was notorious for back in '88 when he was a governor. He gave this notoriously long speech. The one he gave a few nights ago was much longer than that because it was interrupted so often by ovations. And of course, the bloviations of the lowest level politician are described by the TV networks as, the speech of his career. What struck me was we're an awfully long way from the Gettysburg Address, which was delivered in a couple of minutes, was met with mostly, puzzlement, but managed to be at the same time deeply rational and truly poetic. We're a long way from that. But what especially bugs me is the way convention speakers will caricature their opponent's point of view, usually outlining it in this very generic way that ends up just caricaturing it. And I'll give you just one example from each convention, how each side will do this to the other. I'll begin with the Republicans. So time and again, Mitt Romney and many others would characterize Barack Obama as a big government man, as an advocate of European-style socialism, the enemy of small business, etc. And it's certainly true that Democrats tend to favor more statist solutions to economic problems, and Obama is one of the purest kind of ideologically democratic figures since George McGovern. Think of the New Deal, the Great Society, are more typically democratic, more statist solutions. But see, here's the thing. Catholic social teaching, which holds to subsidiarity, a principle I've described before, namely that you have a prejudice in favor of the more local solution to economic and political matters. But if a problem can't be solved at that level, you can and should move to higher levels of social organization, even to the very highest level. Sometimes, according to Catholic social teaching, big government is right government. So the question is not between big versus small, as though in itself that settles the matter. The question is right or wrong, just or unjust, effective or ineffective. And sometimes big government is right government. Catholic social teaching also talks about distributive justice, which means the relationship between a government and the social whole or the common good. That goods and so on have to be distributed, at least in a roughly fair and equitable way. To give the most obvious example, governments legitimately tax the people and then use that money for all sorts of social programs for the common good. For example, does anyone outside the most ardent Tea Party advocates think that things such as civil defense or a national highway system or Medicare or Medicaid could be handled at a more local level of organization? These things are recognized, I think, by most sensible people as legitimate expressions of the federal government. Again, big government there as right government or correct government. So I think it's a question of situating the thing in a properly moral context and asking the question, well, is big government good or bad? Right answer being, well, it depends. It depends on the issue and the social situation. Now, just as much caricaturing went on, of course, on the other side. Democrats doing it to Republicans. Go back again to Bill Clinton's stem-winding speech. Time and time again, he would say something like this, that Romney's Republicanism represents a dog-eat-dog individualism. It's sort of you're on your own vision of life, where the Democrats stand for social cohesion and compassion and care for each other. And we got a stark option here. Are you opting for the kind of Hobbesian, even Ayn Randian sort of dog-eat-dog individualism, or are you going to go with the beautiful community of love and compassion advocated by the Democrats? Now, Clinton's speech was right in line with a film that Democrats showed. And what struck me as I listened to the speech and watched the film was, again, this gross caricaturing that Catholic social teaching can help to address. Because the underlying assumption of Clinton's speech was, we got a binary option. Either it's community affected through government, or it's no community at all. It's government as the agent of social cohesion, or simply a Hobbesian and Randian individualism. But Catholic social teaching insists, even as it calls for government's legitimate role, as I was just arguing, sometimes government is the proper agent for forms of social cohesion. But it maintains that between government and the individual, there's a whole slew of mediating institutions that play a key and decisive role in the economic, political, social, and moral life of the community. So, for example, churches and schools and clubs and unions and other social organizations that provide the cohesiveness to the society. It's not simply a matter of government or dog-eat-dog individualism. Rather, it's love and compassion and connection and care for each other being taught and fostered through this whole range of mediating institutions. People learn, for example, that a dog-eat-dog individualism is a bad thing, not so much from federal legislation and programs, but they learn it from pulpits. They learn it from conversations around the family dining room. They learn it from fulfilling their contracts and social obligations. It's from these densely textured mediating institutions that their social consciousness is formed. And so I would say, even though people find convention speeches, I guess, inspiring or uplifting, I'd say spend less time listening to those and read Catholic social teaching, which I think brings forth the ideals of both the Democratic and Republican parties, but without their attendant distortions.